I can already see the titles on this video. Ooh, you're fishing for views! You put the one title that would actually get you views. Yes, you're right, I am fishing for views. And it's actually beautiful that my real and honest emotions and feelings about this movie allow me to use the title that's going to get me some more clicks. So hate away in the comments, tell me how I'm wrong, but maybe hear me out first. So I just got to see Deadpool and Wolverine, aka Deadpool 3, the first Deadpool movie in the MCU, kind of. I won't talk about that in this video, but either way, it's the first movie under the Disney banner, under the banner of the MCU. And this review, before you get nervous, will contain no spoilers, nothing that wasn't shown in the trailers, so I will only be talking about trailer stuff here. Tomorrow, I will have a spoiler video to go really in-depth on my views, so subscribe, turn on notifications, because that will be coming tomorrow. And as you read by the title, I found this movie to be disappointing. Does that mean I found this movie to be bad? No, not really. This is not a bad movie at all, and I will really go in depth here and kind of give you my idea of what I mean by disappointing. And some things that I like about the movie, and of course the things that I didn't particularly like. Now, when I say disappointing, the reason that I found this movie to be so disappointing is because of the hype for this film. It's been a while since I've really had a lot of hype for a Marvel movie. I think the last time was really for Spider-Man No Way Home. I think it kind of peaked at that film, and we haven't really had a big Marvel or superhero moment since then. We've really just had disappointment after disappointment, bad to terrible movies, just really not great TV shows, and this was the first time in a while that something was coming from Marvel that really looked great, for me at least. It's a movie that's supposed to kind of reset Marvel, both be a box office hit and also bring the fans back in. And I think it's going to accomplish that. I think it will be a box office success, and I think it will bring a lot of Marvel fans into the fold. I expect people to love this movie. But for me personally, I needed this movie to be like a 4 or a 5. Like a 4 or a 5, and just to be honest, it was not that. It just kind of felt like more Marvel bullshit, and it felt like the weakest Deadpool movie that we've ever gotten. Not the weakest Wolverine movie, but that's not a high bar to get over. So let's get into it. The first things first, this movie is at its core a Deadpool film. It's called Deadpool and Wolverine, but it really is a Wade Wilson-focused film, and Ryan Reynolds as the character is as great as he's always been. He's completely committed to this character, he loves playing this character, he's witty, he's fun, he's maybe a little more over the top in this one than in the previous films, to the point where it becomes so ridiculous that it's not as funny anymore, but still he is what you expect him to be. Hugh Jackman back as Wolverine, we never thought we would ever see it, and to be honest with you, I kind of wish we never saw it, but that has nothing to do with this film. It's just kind of this nostalgic thing of, can you let something end? But he's here, and he's also incredible in this film. This is one of his best performances as this character. Not his best, but one of his best. He can lend into the comedy very, very well when he's got to be funny. A little goofy, he does that great, but there are some really serious and dramatic scenes in this film that he also performs incredibly. Imagine some of the stuff he saw in Logan. He kind of brings that side of the character into this movie in different scenes, and it really kind of hits you in the gut. So what are my main problems with this movie? I have a ton. First things first, this movie's plot. I feel like this movie, I don't want to say it's plotless, but there's really not an overall story here that works well. I mean, there are themes that are hanging over the film overall, themes that integrate with all of the characters here, but the actual story is so bare bones and so Marvel, like MCU Marvel, that there's just really nothing to grit your teeth into. And I know it's Deadpool, it's a comedy, they don't really need much, or they shouldn't need much, but there's really not much going on in this film compared to kind of what was promised. And when I say promised, I mean Kevin Feige saying that this movie is like one tier under Avengers Endgame. If Avengers Endgame and Infinity War are the most important films in the universe, Deadpool's like right under there. And when you make a promise like that, you're expecting some meaty story stuff. There's just not a lot of meat here. Aside from the actual plot, this movie also has a villain problem, which is nothing new for the MCU. I am not a fan of the villain in this movie. It is as predictable and as generic as it gets. You know what the villain is in this movie without even seeing it. You kind of get the motivations without even seeing it. It's a generic villain that just does not really work. And when it does start to work, they kind of undo what was working about what they were doing with the villain. And it just never feels organic. The villain here is just forgettable and something we're probably never going to talk about again. I do like the character journeys, right, that these people are going on. Now, it's like the big question of the movie. How do they bring Wolverine back without it kind of interfering in his previous stories? I'm not going to tell you, I'm not going to spoil it. They do have a good way of doing it that makes enough sense, and they don't completely ruin the legacy of Logan. There are some things I'll talk about in the spoiler video that I don't exactly like, but overall, they do a fine job of not really touching that stuff, but bringing back Wolverine in a way that feels like the same, but also feels new. But also, sort of the traumas and the backstory of this Wolverine is also just kind of as generic and predictable as it gets. They kind of hold it over the film for a very long time. Ooh, what happened to him? What happened in his past? And it's not that interesting. And the stuff Deadpool's going through is fine, I guess. Both their journeys together is probably the strongest part of the story. Their journey of kind of learning to become heroes, I guess, is the best way to put it. And that is probably the strongest part of what's actually written here. Then we get to the comedy. Now, of course, this is a comedy at its core. It's a movie with fourth wall breaks. It's a movie with so many, like, kind of on-the-nose jokes, so many references, Easter eggs. That's what Deadpool is. And I will say, if you love that kind of stuff, there is a lot of it here, and you are going to enjoy it. I like it, too, to a certain extent. I really loved it in the first two movies. Here, a lot of it hit for me. A lot of it didn't hit. There are a lot of jokes, a lot of just moments that, I don't know if I felt like it was kind of the Marvelized Disney version of the Deadpool fourth wall breaks and jokes. Like, it's almost so over the top and so over the edge and grotesque that they're just trying to say, ooh, look how weird and gross and grotesque we can get. It doesn't feel as well written and well placed throughout the movie as it used to. I also think the opening of this film is just kind of, I mean, there's moments in the opening that are great, but there's like a big fight scene in the opening. It's just so silly, and it immediately lost me, kind of from the start of the film. The music in this movie, too. There are so many classic songs used throughout this film, which usually, you know, I love music in films, and I really like to study the use of music in films. And there are some songs in this movie, specifically in the third act, that are used brilliantly and add so much. There are a bunch of other songs that are thrown in the scenes that I don't even know why those songs are in there. Like, they don't enhance the scene, it just kind of makes the movie feel like a music video at times. I was not a fan of a lot of the music choices. It didn't feel kind of like organically in tone with something like how Guardians of the Galaxy does it. So because of that, yet again, just another thing that was disappointing. The cameos. There's a lot of cameos in this movie. Of course, you expect it. They hyped it up. Do they, you know, satisfy you? I mean, maybe. I will say, they do not, like, blow their load in this movie like they did in No Way Home, like they promised to do in Doctor Strange, and like some of the leaks said they were going to do. They don't in this movie. They're clearly saving it for a future Avengers film, but there are some cameos in this movie that genuinely surprised me, one of which they spoiled in the trailers that I'm not even going to say. That probably would have been the best one if they hadn't spoiled it in the trailer, but some of them are really fun, unique. I'll talk about it in the spoiler stuff tomorrow. None of them feel too shoehorned in, but they still kind of feel that, like, Doctor Strange-y type way, where they just, it's almost just happening because they need to deliver on cameos, right? It doesn't feel like the cameos needed to be in the movie. It just felt like they had to satisfy the fans' urge for that, right? A lot of the action scenes are cool. There's two in particular, I think, that are shot really, really well and look cool. The CGI looks great. Sometimes. Other times it looks horrible. I really like Matthew McFadden in this movie. He is making a bunch of tomlets, breaking some Gregs. He's incredible. He steals this movie for me. Every scene he's in, just perfect. I love him so much. This movie's, you know, how it connects to the MCU. I can't really talk about that without spoiling it, so wait for tomorrow's video. But I will say, I was disappointed in how it kind of connects to the MCU. I was a little let down of the direction that I thought they were going to go in and the direction they seemingly are going in. I don't really know. That's kind of the problem with this entire stage of the MCU. It feels directionless. I have no idea where they're going, and I'm at the point where I feel like they don't really have much of an idea of where they're going. Or at least where they're going has changed like 4 or 5 or 20 times over the last couple years, so that's why the movies still feel like they're just all over the place. Hopefully that'll change soon. But overall, this movie just, I think the main word I can say to describe the whole essence of it is it feels like a mess. It's just kind of a disappointing mess, and kind of like similar to pretty much everything we've gotten from Marvel lately. It's one of the better Marvel movies from the last few years, but it's certainly not great, and I just don't think I'll ever have the desire to go back and watch this again. Now, I know a lot of you are going to see this movie and hate me for saying this shit, and that's fine. I might be in the minority of opinion in this movie, so tell me why I'm wrong. Tell me why I'm right, or just say nothing. I don't know, subscribe, do whatever the hell you want. But I will give Deadpool and Wolverine a disappointing 2.5 out of 5. Yeah, it's just was not my favorite. Yet again, it's not the worst Marvel movie ever, but it's just, I had so much excitement for this, and I really wanted this one to be great and really bring me back into the MCU, because I've been kind of drifting away from Marvel for a while, and instead I feel the same that I felt before, just let down. But let me know what you thought of the movie down below. Make sure to like this video, subscribe for more, turn on notifications, be prepared for my spoiler video tomorrow, and I will see you in the next one.